Hey guys, it's A-Dogs, and today I'll be doing a deck profile on Veleno. This is a hostage variant. It's the most consistent variant that I've found that works for me, and it can definitely grind out games very well into a position the way you can win. So with that out of the way, let's jump in the deck profile. So first of all, we do have the ride lines. We've got the 0, the 1, the 2, and the 3. Not really much to say with that. Then for our grade 3s, we do have 3 copies of Veleno. Persona Ride is quite important in this deck because we do run a card that can kind of slow down the game state for us where we can get into a position where we can take control again. That's why we run 3 copies of our Persona Ride. For our grade 2s, we run 4 copies of Egregious. So Egregious allows us to call any card from drop back to board according to our Vanguard's grade or less, but it also does allow us to add a Blitz order back from drop to hand as well if need be. It is a multi-attacker and it can be a 20 to 25k beat stick. So as you can see, it's a very powerful card that does a lot in this deck. So that's why we run 4 copies of Egregious. Next we do run 3 copies of Gridoli. So this is just another way of making board recursion, but it's also a big booster. They can also swing as a 20k beat stick or 20k booster as well. So it's very strong overall. It's why we still run 3 copies of Gridoli in the deck. And then next we do run 2 copies of Margaret. So the reason why I run Margaret in this deck is that in Persona Ride, for a counterblast of 1, we can stun the opponent's front row reguards and they can't intercept. So for decks like Vab or even Vigilia, or even any decks that require to restand their reguards against their multi-attacks, it slows their game plan down unless they're willing to call cards out of their hand to replace those cards, which is good for us because it means it's forcing more cards out of their hand, which is what we want because we're trying to aim to grind into a position where we can win. So that's why we run 2 Margarets in the deck. Next, we run 3 copies of the Effervescent Shadow Dreamblade. So it's a 20k shield that allows us to play an additional Blitz order for the cost of 2 energy. So it's very strong. You can stack multiple within the turn if you have the energy for it. So it's overall a very strong shield and it helps with that game plan of being able to grind the games out. So very good Blitz order. Now for a couple of our one-off Blitz orders, we do have the 1 copy of Ghost Chase. So Ghost Chase allows us to add Persona Rides back from field if we call them, from Egregious or any other card from drop. It can also bounce back triggers or anything that we need to use it either offensively or defensively. So it's a very good Blitz order. Next we do have 1 copy of the Fine Drink of Abolishment of Sins. So this is essentially a draw 2 Blitz order, obviously as long as the attack doesn't hit. It allows us to dig through our deck a little bit faster and also get a bigger hand overall. And it sure does scale according to how many different orders we have in drop. So it can also being a very fat shield too. So that's why we run the 1 copy of the Abolishment of Sins. Next we do run 1 copy of the Sweet Honey Garden. It is a very fat shield that's very easy to obtain. All we need is just a Blitz order and drop and it becomes a 25k shield. So it's a very big shield which allows us to guard for less overall in our hand so we can still maintain a big hand size. So really good Blitz order. And then for our last one of Blitz order, we do run 1 copy of Twin Cast. So it's just a simple 10k shield, which is fine because sometimes all you need is an extra 10k shield in our Blitz order. But also you can use it from the drop as well as potentially usually a 15k shield because your opponent will be in grade 3, sometimes more. But it does also help with that survivability, having that little bit of an extra option. So this one's good. You could also opt to change this for the Bracing Angel Ladder. Angel Ladder is also a very good option in this deck too, because sometimes if you are setting up cards to put into the for a hostage, you want to make sure those cards retain on the board. So Bracing Angel Ladder is also a good option too. Okay, next we do run 2 copies of Command of Death Restraint. So this is another card that allows us to call other cards from drop. We run this because this is essentially like a no cost card to recur bodies. So especially in turns we want to set up a couple of cards we use defensively, we can use this with Egregious, just so we have an ample amount of defense to use during the opponent's turn. It's also good for calling back bodies as well, so to call back our egregiouses or any other cards that we may need. So it's just a very, very solid order overall. And then of course you run 2 of the hostage order, again to be able to grind those games out, being able to move PGs to the Guardian Circle or other triggers as well if need be, just finding any way possible where we're using as minimal cards from my hand as possible. So that's why we run the 2 copies of the hostage order. Okay, so for our grade 1s, we first of all do run 4 copies of Lascaria. So Lascaria is really good. It allows us for a counterbuster 1 being able to add 2 blitz orders back to hand so we can continue that grind game. But another good thing about it as well is it puts itself on the bottom of the deck. So that means, you know, being able to use it like multiple times during the game, we start to get to a point where while the opponent is decking out, we still have a little bit of a deck left because we constantly use Lascaria. So it definitely does help in that regards too, but the main purpose is getting those blitz orders back to hand, because also in some scenarios where you're being rushed while you're on grade 2, you may have to use your blitz orders earlier, and in doing so you need to make sure you have an ample amount of blitz orders for the next turn as well. That's why I've opted to run at 4, so to be as consistent as possible. Next we do run 3 copies of Veleno. So Veleno is just a very, very strong card. It does allow us to search for any order that we reveal or Veleno. So we can add a hostage order, we can add a blitz order if we see a blitz order that we need as well, and we can also find pieces of Veleno as well. So we might be missing egregious, we might need a Lascaria. So it helps in all situations where we need to use a counterblast for something that could be very impactful. Veleno is good for that purpose, so it's why we still run 3. It is also an 18k booster, which is really strong because on kill turns, you know, having big boosters, pushing with big boosters helps a lot. So it's why we run 3 copies on Veleno. And then next we run 3 PGs and 1 Sanctitude. The reason why I run the 1 Sanctitude is because again, Veleno can also find Sanctitude on our ride line as well, where we may need to urgently find a PG. A ride line can help us search for Sanctitude in those scenarios. So that's why I only run the 3 PGs and 1 Sanctitude, because there are scenarios where getting that PG is the difference between us surviving and dying. So that's why we do run the 1 Sanctitude in the deck with the 3 PGs. Okay, then for our triggers, we run 4 in soul fronts. The reason why we run 4 in soul fronts is because we do end up using a little soul, and we need to always constantly have soul for our blitz orders. We need soul for egregious, we need soul for our Gradoli. So there's a few cards that do use it, and we want to make sure we always have enough soul to do what we're trying to do every single turn. So that's why we run the 4 fronts. But the fronts also do help with making bigger power lines overall, because when we go for our 5 attacks, when our Vanguard does swing and swing egregiouses, they get a front, they're hitting bigger numbers overall. So very, very strong. So that's why we run the 4 fronts. Next, we do run 4 heals. The heals are self-explanatory. And then of course we run the 7 crits, and then the 1 Blessed Favor OT. Now, so again, the main aim with this deck, as I said, is you're aiming to use your blitz orders. You're mainly aiming to use a hostage every single turn. You're trying to find whatever you can to survive. The biggest issue that I found with the deck, before running any of the extra defensive cards, was that just running the blitz orders wasn't enough. Especially against Bav, when Bav was hitting very big numbers, the blitz orders wasn't enough. I needed a more surefire way of defense, and the hostage order has helped with that. That's why I've opted to run hostage in this build. It's also why I've also opted to run 2 of the Death Restraint, because sometimes we do want to set up 2 cards that again we can use defensively to put into the Guardian Circle, so that we're constantly having an abundance of shield to get to that scenario where we do deck the opponent out or get into a position where we've out-resourced them and we can kill them. So that's the deck profile. I know it's very quick. If you do have any questions, just feel free to leave them in the comments down below and I'll answer them the best that I can. It's very rough. I know it's very a bit rushed. I just wanted to kind of get this build out just so for people who are looking to play Veleno and want to kind of compete with it, this is a build that I feel that works for me. This video won't be edited because I don't have my computer at the moment, but I just wanted to get something out so people just have a rough idea. But anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy the profile. If you did, make sure to leave a like, and while you're down there, why not subscribe and hit that notification bell so that when I upload another video, you will be notified. Thanks for watching.